So folks, I saw a video of a really disappointing mom asking if she's wrong to feel like enough is enough when it comes to letting kids with special needs take up too much attention in public school classrooms. She was just asking because when she volunteers in her kid's classroom, she always feels like the kid with special needs is too damn distracting, and she gets irritated that her kid, has to make space for a person who might make her kid, feel uncomfortable. So there's that. And that made me think of the case the Supreme Court is deciding right now about whether or not schools have to allow parents to opt out when classrooms are going to be introducing inclusive materials, like a children's book that includes a same-sex wedding. The schools are saying it's disruptive. It requires a lot of resources to supervise alternatives for the kids who opt out, and it introduces stigma. The religious parents are saying, my kids shouldn't be exposed to stuff that my pea brain can't make space for. Well, I heard snips of some of the arguments, and unsurprisingly, Alito is behaving like a schneedle. Alito's basic view is that if a book that includes two men getting married is introduced into a classroom, young students will think the teacher is endorsing gay marriage. His message is, we don't want our kids indoctrinated at school, which is where I call bullshit, because Alito's implication is that same-sex marriage is a bridge too far. But at some point, you have to call out Alito's bridge for being too near. How many years do same-sex couples need to exist before Alito says it's cool for books about them to be read in schools? How long does reality have to be real to get to be counted in public spaces without religious people being allowed to keep throwing down caveats? The disappointing mom in the video has kids in public school. The Supreme Court case is about public school. Public school has to reflect a public world. Differences among people are nothing new, and whether or not the identification of them, the diagnosis of them, or the inclusion of them has increased so it looks like there are more of them than there were before, it doesn't matter. This is the world we live in today. Different people are part of life, and denying them, squirreling them away, or creating opt-outs so you or your children don't have to be exposed to them is denying reality, and that means you're curating a world that you endorse, not a world that is. Alito says teachers shouldn't get to freely pick what part of the real world they want to bring into the classroom. But in the same breath, Alito thinks he should be allowed to pick what part of the real world can be treated with stigma. That is a slippery slope, even for Samuel. Because the fantasy the righteous have woven is that everything would be fabulous all the time if the Alitos and disappointing moms of the world could just get back to a time when they didn't have to share the air with a riffraff. If opt-outs and enough is enough become common, a lot of stigma is going to be assigned. A lot of very real people are going to be treated as if they aren't or shouldn't be real. What's clear to me is that Alito and disappointing mom haven't spent much time with their uncomfortable feelings. And why would they, when they've become so comfortable telling the world around them to bend to their liking? So they're lazy. The Alitos fly flags of protest against the gays. Why would they bother getting to know any? Disappointing mom could never see the experience of a neurodivergent child as equally valid to her son's. Her son is obviously a better product. The reality is both Alito and disappointing mom are probably here on Earth to do exactly the same hard work of sitting through those difficult feelings, to check their revulsion and ask themselves, who do I think I am? What right do I have to claim a bubble of space just because I think my experience should be less burdened and less polluted by bad stuff? And what can I learn by what I label as polluted, burdened, or bad? Until Alito and disappointing mom do that work, they'll keep finding things they perceive to infringe on their comfort. If only they could stare that shit down and work on it, they'd have a shot at finding comfort from within. And then they could stop focusing on how they're going to prove that everybody's trying to rob their purity and start figuring out how to stop being so freaking insufferable. Well, Alito and disappointing mom, have the day you deserve. Yeah.